forever. Sing praise, sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever and ever, from the rising to the setting sun, love endures forever. By the grace of God, we will carry on. His love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever and ever, forever. Love endures forever. His love endures forever. His love endures forever. His love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise, sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever and ever. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever and ever. Blessed be your name, the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, we're found in the desert place. I walk through the wilderness. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name, the sun shining down on me. The world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, on the road marked with suffering. There's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord, blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord, blessed be your glorious name. Majesty of heaven, your glory fills the skies. Light of the world, you are Lord of all. Humbled by your presence, amazed by who you are. Nothing compares, you are Lord of all. To you the nations bow down, to you creation cries out, majesty. All things you hold together, your name will stand forever. Majesty, you are majesty. Merciful and mighty, my heart is overwhelmed. You stand alone, you are alone. To the nations bow down, to you creation cries out, majesty. All things you hold together, your name will stand forever. Majesty, you are majesty. Your name above all others, high and exalted. Your kingdom shall reign forever, high and exalted. Your name above all others, high and exalted. Your kingdom shall reign forever, high and exalted. To you the nations bow down, to you creation cries out, majesty. All things you hold together, your name will stand forever. Majesty, you are majesty, you are majesty. You are the shepherd king. You lead us by still waters. Hallelujah. You are Savior. You are my only hope. Your kindness is my friend. In your presence, you restore us. Jesus, you are stronger, more than any other. Hallelujah, what a Savior. Jesus, you are higher, my soul's deepest
sterile this week. I think I'm sterile. Let me out. Oh. A lot of doing travel.
All right. Yeah, you're all good. All right. All right. We're glad that everybody's here this morning. I feel like there's something that somebody told me I was supposed to say this morning, and hopefully it wasn't my wife. Because if it was my wife, then that's even worse. Come on in. Well, we're glad that you're here this morning. We have a special guest, Rebecca Moiso. Is that correct? Moisio. All right, thank you. I knew I was going to not get that quite right. But she will, I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk about what she's doing in the field of mission. And she's one of our own. You graduated from Olivet. And so that's in, not Kansas City, right? Near Chicago, right? All right. So that tells you how much I know about all of that. But she's going to explain all this stuff to us. So I'm going to let her come and speak, and then afterwards we're going to do some other things real quick. So Rebecca, would you?
Well, good morning. So I'm going to do something up here real quick before I get started that some of you can see, some of you may not. I like to bring pieces of culture with me whenever I go speak at a church, which is why I'm wearing this top because I wouldn't be able to wear this anywhere else. But I came up here and I took off my shoes. And I promise it's not because I'm trying to be irreverent. I used to serve in the Philippines for 6 months. And the church that I attended, whenever someone came up here on the platform or to sing or to speak, they would take off their shoes because this is holy ground. So that's where we're going to start this today. So let me ask you a question. Imagine for me that the most exciting thing that has ever happened to you has just happened. The most exciting thing, whatever that is for you. Maybe it's just something general. We'll say you just found the cure for cancer. Someone just came up and handed it to you. And it's so exciting. And you have to tell everybody you want, everyone you know, that you've just found the cure for cancer. But here's the problem. You're stuck in your seat and you can't move. And you can't speak. All of a sudden you just can't speak anymore. And you can't use your hands anymore, and you're just kind of stuck there with the most exciting thing in the world. What do you do? How do you communicate it? I mean, the short answer is you can't, right? You're just stuck there. That's where people like me come in. So I am a media missionary, and that's not an official term, that's just the one that I use. And I like to think of it as, well, you guys get to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the body. People like me, we get to be the eyes, we get to be the mouth, and we get to be the ears of the body. So let me back up a second and define for you what media is. When I say media, I mean when you take a message and you put it into a format that can be shared with somebody else. That is media. So it's not just the story, it's not just the act of speaking, it's when you can take a message and you can duplicate it and hand it to someone else. That is media. So can anyone tell me who the first media missionary is in the Bible? First person who took a message and put it into a format that can be shared. Moses. Usually people give me Paul, and Paul's a good one, but that's not quite where I'm going. So if you want to put it a different way, he was the first guy to download his message from the cloud and put it on his tablet. Come on, that's really funny. I heard that on Facebook the other day, and I just laughed. First guy to get the message from the cloud, his data from the cloud, and put it on his tablet. So he was the first, I know, you got to kind of think about it a little bit. He was the first media missionary. Now, that is a very lofty thing, and I don't usually like to tie myself to Moses because that's a big goal. So I like to think a little bit further. And I think, then my thoughts go to Paul. Well, Paul himself was not a media missionary. Paul was a preacher. He was an evangelist. He had the message to give. But they think that Paul was either had something wrong with his eyesight or he just couldn't write very well. So we have all of these letters from him, but if he couldn't see to write, who wrote those letters? He had a little assistant behind him who took his message and wrote it down and handed it off to someone else. The fancy word for that is amanuensis. That's your big fancy word for today. Amanuensis. It is a scribe. So that's kind of what I do. I'm a scribe. I go to the places in our region and I find those stories and I share them with other people. So as a Nazarene missionary, I started out at Olivet. That's where I got the call to serve. And I was one of those freshmen when I thought that I had everything figured out. And I was really annoying because all my other freshman friends are like, we don't know what we're doing. And I'm like, I know. I'm going to go be a producer in like New York and make videos and movies and stuff. And second semester, God goes, oh, hey, I want you to be a missionary. And I freaked out because I didn't know what that meant. I thought missionary meant someone who like went to the jungle in Africa and lived in a hut and preached to natives. And I was like, I can't do that. God goes, no. I want you to get your degree in media and then go out and be a missionary. So that's how I got here. The Eurasia region, which is where I'm serving currently, is all of Europe, the former Soviet Union, the Middle East, and South Asia. That is our region, and it is massive. There's over 2.5 billion people, 127 languages, and thousands of preaching points and world evangelism projects. And I lost the other word. There's a lot going on. Let me put it that way to you. There's a lot going on in our region. You guys, I'm assuming you guys do Faith Promise and you give to the World Evangelism Fund. You should be, as a Nazarene church, that's what you do. And that goes to start new church plants, and it funds some missionaries, and it provides training materials, and does all these great things. And it's all good and well to give to those projects, but if you don't know what's actually coming back, you're like, well, why am I helping out with this? That's where I come in, and I go to these places, and I film what's happening, and then I bring it back to you, among other things. So why does that matter? That's a question I'm constantly asking myself. I mean, I'm a pretty young missionary. I'm still a millennial. I'm in that generation. And I haven't quite figured it out yet. It's always something that I'm struggling and wrestling with. If I'm going to be really honest with you, it's something that is almost a self-esteem issue for me. Like, why am I here, God? Why does this matter? All I do is film stuff and I edit stuff. I'm stationed in Manchester, England right now, which is a really nice place to be, if I'm being honest. I like being in England. People speak English, kind of. And they eat normal food, mostly. And I have Wi-Fi, and I have air conditioning when it gets cold enough, or when it gets hot enough, which it doesn't normally do. But the point is that it's not glamorous. You know, I don't live in a hut. So why does it matter? Why should you care? And this season, as I've come back on home assignment, I asked that question. I got myself into trouble. I have notes today. I don't normally have notes. I'm like, I really should. And I asked this question in front of a church when I was speaking, and I didn't have the answer. I just asked it, kind of to myself, which is dangerous. But this is what God told me. He's like, did you look at the media that's around you today? And I was like, okay. So think about that. Think about the things you see on media today. When I think of that, I think of fake news, you know, CNN, all these crazy news things that are happening, and all this crazy political junk that's just piling up, you know? It exhausts me. I look at the news and I see, well, not even just the news, I look at like Facebook. I open just articles on social media, and it's all group over here is a victim, and this group over here is racist and homophobic, and you're intolerant, you're a bigot. The world is falling apart, America sucks. All of this junk that just piles up from both sides, like nobody has anything good to say about the other person. Have you felt that? You know, that my younger people with social media, have you guys felt that? Do you see that coming up on your, especially stuff like, if you don't believe in this, you're intolerant. If you don't believe in this, well, you're a racist. It's everywhere. And I don't know how to handle it. And then God goes, well, that's why you're telling stories. I go, oh, okay. I mean, it doesn't feel like a lot. What I do doesn't feel like it's a big thing. This past year, I probably produced about 10 videos. And they were sizable videos. And it doesn't sound like a lot. Like for someone who's not a video producer, you're like, that's it. But a lot of work goes into these things. There's a lot of planning, there's a lot of traveling, there's many hours editing behind a computer, and then re-edits, and then 50 more re-edits, and it's a lot of work. But each time I produce something for our church of the Nazarene, it's this one nugget of hope, which may not feel like it's a lot, but in this sea of black, one nugget of light goes pretty far. You know, have you ever heard of the the analogy where they turn all the lights out in a room and somebody lights a match. So you've got this big room of black, one match goes really far. And that's what I do. That's why it matters. We're going to watch a video here in a little bit. It's not one that I filmed, but it's one that I edited. As soon as I got in the field, they had probably 6 or 7 projects that needed to be finished that they just didn't have anybody to finish. One of the problems we face is that of all of these people and all of these stories, there are millions of stories out there on our region. There are currently 2 videographers to cover all of it. That is not enough people, and there's a lot of work to be done. So this project was already filmed before I got there, and then I just put it together. So it is one that is a piece of work that is mine. And it's a story, and I know we are live streaming right now, so I'm not going to tell you where it's from. It's a creative access country, and we're going to call the lady in this story Yana. And she's from an area where it's illegal to evangelize, and it's very frowned upon to be a Christian. It's just not really a safe place to be. We sent a team of Olivet students there, and they did almost all of their filming in her house because they were not allowed to go outside of her house because it would attract attention. So almost all of the footage in the video we're about to look at all came from inside of her home. And her story is just, even though it's from another culture, I feel like it's relevant for today. Because we are quickly approaching a culture in the States that is intolerant towards Christians. Have you felt that yet? I've felt it. Where if you're a Christian, automatically, especially if you're white and you're Christian, you are automatically labeled as a intolerant bigot. So I feel like this fits. This is relevant. Now, we legally are able to be a church here, and that's awesome. We still have that freedom. So when you're watching this, I want you to listen for the message of hope that's in it, because it's really cool. And then I'm going to point a couple things out to you afterwards. But whoever is in the back, if you want to go ahead and roll this story.
Before I accepted Jesus as my savior, I was a kind of wizard and did that for many, many years.
For 8 years, Yana was a shaman of her religion and practiced witchcraft. She began learning how to become a shaman when she was 32 years old. The leaders of the sect would take her to a graveyard, and they would lie down on the graves and call on the spirits to imbue them with power. Yana began learning witchcraft when she had gone to a shaman to be healed of an illness. She was told that she had special spirits in her, and that if she wanted to be healed, she must join shamanism, or else she would never recover from her illness.
At that time, I really thought that it was right thing to do, but of course, after I accepted Jesus, I realized that it was wrong.
Towards the end of her days as a shaman, Yana was experiencing unhappiness. Throughout their marriage, her husband was an alcoholic and had recently fallen ill. 3 of her daughters had gone through divorce. She was searching for answers. And then, one day, while riding a bus, she overheard a conversation that changed her life.
I got on the bus and I heard 2 women speaking about a girl who used to be a prostitute, and she accepted some Jesus, and after she accepted him, her life changed completely. So I turned to these women and I asked them, is it true? Is it really true? I heard that Jesus was just a prophet.
The women invited Yana to tea, and it was there that they prayed for her and her family with more care than Yana had expected, and she was deeply touched by their concern. They also explained that she was not praying to God and that she had been bowing down to idols.
And at that moment, I decided to do it, decided to accept Jesus, though I didn't fully knew if it was really true. But I thought, if God really doesn't like what I'm doing, then maybe I should try and accept Jesus. That day I came home and I took all the things that are used for wizard crafts and burned it. Yes, it was hard for me to do this. I had like some doubts, but I felt I had to do this, and I thought about sufferings of Jesus, how he suffered for me. After I burned all those things, I felt real freedom and happiness and joy, and I started singing at home and just like wanted to fly because I had so much joy and happiness. Since that very day, I started worshiping a God and writing songs to him.
After she had dedicated her life to Jesus, Yana's life began to improve. Her husband was healed of cancer and their marriage flourished. He became a Christian and was freed from his addiction to alcohol.
So we have a big problem that in our villages there's a lot of persecutions against Christians, but in spite of all this, we are flourishing in Jesus. The most important thing is that I want to praise God that He found me in that place and He came to me and He saved me. I would like to say to all of my sisters and brothers in Christ in the whole world that in spite of the fact that life is difficult, we have to follow Jesus because he said that first we have to search for God's kingdom and the rest will be given to us. I want to tell everyone who hears me now that no matter what difficulties you're experiencing in your life now, give them to the Lord and He will be with you and He will help you.
The most exciting thing in the world happened to this woman. From one comment that she overheard on the bus. Now, she's been stuck in this country. She has been mute. She hasn't been able to get out and tell the story to anyone until a team of students from Olivet came, a team of scribes, and she told them her message. And then they brought it back. That's what I do. Did you catch the hope in that? This is a country where death is very important in their culture, but if you're a Christian, they won't let you be buried in the cemeteries. She was driven out of her home after she became a Christian, and she and her family had to leave. Now, her husband became a Christian, her daughters became Christians, her nieces and nephews became Christians. One of her nieces, we have her story also, is not only is she a Christian, she is the commissioner of the police in their major city. Isn't that cool? One spark starts this fire that spreads. Now, I pointed out to you that most of those shots were in her home. So they moved somewhere else and they built this building that was their home. And she felt the call to plant a church there. Did you see their congregation? It's about this size in her house. How cool is that? You guys, there is hope there. And it started from one spark, one story on a bus. So that brings me to what can you do here? We like to say at this point in presentations, you can pray, give, and go. Those are the three things. So if you're looking for things to pray for on the mission field, you can pray for my team that goes out, because we have to go to countries like this where it can get really dangerous. I had to go to Bangladesh just recently, where it is very illegal to evangelize. Not creative access. You can be a Christian there, but you are not allowed to go with the intention of converting anyone else. So it's very touchy. And I had to walk in, and it was actually a pretty cool moment because all I had to say was, "Oh, I'm a videographer. I'm doing some filming." And they're like, "Oh, well, come on in." But it gets really dangerous. So if you're looking to pray for things, pray for our teams as we go into these countries. Pray for the people that we can find the right stories to share. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there, so we have to be kind of choosy. So pray that we find the right ones that God needs to get through. Now, if you want to give, you give already through the World Evangelism Fund, and that's Faith Promise. So when the next Faith Promise comes around, keep Yana in your mind, because it's through those funds that she can run her church and people like her. That's how we get church plants in these areas, through these funding. But what I really like to focus on is the go part. Now, if you really want to go be a missionary, that's awesome. Come talk to me. I'll give you the steps. I'll give you the links. I'll give you the people to talk to. But that's not what I want to focus on. Because we are definitely in a country that needs some missionaries. Can I get an amen? We are in a country that really needs some missionaries. I have friends of my generation who can't be in a room alone because they don't want to hear their own thoughts. It's depressing out there. My generation, we're living in this age of subjective, abstract truth. Both you're right and I'm right. And it's tearing people apart. They're not happy. And they're looking for something that's solid. They don't have the solid rock to stand on. I was listening to that song the other day and it really hit me. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. People in my generation are on shifting sands. The reality is just up and down. It's not solid. We don't know what to expect from one moment to the next. We don't know what we have to believe as truth from one moment to the next if we don't have that solid rock. So there's plenty of work to do here. And you don't have to go out and beat people upside the head with a Bible. Okay? You just have to have the courage to have conversations on a bus about people who have found Jesus. And you have to have the courage to be an ambassador. If you call yourself a Christian, you better be acting like it. When you say, I am a little Christ, you are telling the world that you represent Jesus. And I don't know about you, but there are plenty of times where I have not represented Jesus. I do a lot of traveling now that I'm home, especially to churches. And I stopped once at a Burger King to get some breakfast. And I ordered something, I think it was like hash browns. And the girl on the other side who's taking my order, she got this look of terror on her face. She's like, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to make new ones. It's gonna be a 3-minute wait. I'm like, okay, that's fine. She's like, people get so mad at me when I tell them they have to wait for 3 minutes. I was like, are you kidding me? That is not being Jesus. What is your attitude like? Are you representing? I used to work at a factory, and one day I walked in, I was wearing a Superman t-shirt, so it had the big emblem on it, and the security guard looks at me, he goes, oh, it's Supergirl, are you here to save the day? And I go, no, but I'm here to represent the one who can. And that's in your attitude, that's how you treat people. At Burger King, the people who cut you off in traffic, even though they can't see you, it's in your attitude. So I want to send you guys out to go be the missionaries, to go be Jesus to these people, to go make friends with people who probably tell you they don't want nothing to do with Jesus. I got plenty of friends I've got friends who are transgender. I have friends who are gay. I have friends who are of all different kinds of religions. And when we get together and hang out, we don't have conversations about God, we just hang out. And when they're ready, when they have that moment where they are just feeling the crushing weight of the world, that's when I come in and be like, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. If you don't have any non-Christian friends, you are not being a representative of Jesus Christ. You need to go out and find people who are not Christians and be friends with them. And it might take a while. That's a ministry that takes a really long time, but it's worth it. And we need it. God is alive, and he is relevant, and he is wanted in this world. They just don't know what to call it yet. So I'm going to pray for you guys, and then we're going to turn it back over to Brian. I think we're actually going to do some questions if you have questions for me. but I like to send you guys out. So that's the prayer that I'm going to share with you right now. Lord, thank you so much for this awesome church in Burton, Lord. God, these are good people, and I feel like they just really want to serve you and love on you and share you with their community. Lord, I ask that you would give them wisdom to see the people that they need to reach. I pray, Lord, that when they come up to just a regular, normal situation at a restaurant, at a gas station, God, that they would just feel that moment to be you in their attitudes and their thoughts and their behaviors. I pray, God, that you give them courage and that you give them peace and that you would send them out to be your representatives in this community. And I pray this, God, in your name. Amen. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I am glad that we had Rebecca come because it really helps us in things that God is doing on mission and the world as a whole. But the call this morning has called all of us. We talked about that. It is the word that God brought to us today. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it up for questions. I want to take time for her. So if you have any questions, I want you to speak up loud, and then
Sure. So right now, the easiest way to view my projects is Nazarene Missions International produces this DVD called Stories. And all of our projects from the Eurasia region go onto that DVD. If you want to look at something specific, come talk to me afterwards. I'll give you a link where you can go. You can also go to the website, nazarene.org. And if you search for stories, it'll pull up all the archive of all the stories from all the regions so you can see what's going on. Yes. So the question is, do I have to raise my own support? And I do. I'm one of the missionaries. Really, I'm kind of a glorified volunteer at this point, which is okay. So I have to raise all of my living money, my rent, my insurance, my travel stuff. I have to raise all of that myself. So if you guys want to be a part of that ministry, come talk to me and I'll give you some information on how you can join me in ministry partner. How do I even work? Good question. So this is kind of the process that we get. We get a region or we get a field that says, I need a story about this thing. So we'll go out and we'll plan it out, and I'll take a bunch of camera equipment and I'll go to a place. Let's say one time we went to Ukraine, which is right next to Russia. They have very cool accents. And we went to Russia or Ukraine, and we filmed a whole bunch of footage of, it's called B-roll, which is just regional or area footage. And then we sat down and we interviewed a bunch of people. We gathered all of this footage. It was a good 100 gigabytes of footage for those techies out there. And we take it all back to my office in England, and then we edit it for a while. And we're still working on those stories from Ukraine, and they're really cool, and I'm really excited. But those are coming in the fall, I think, when they're coming out. Does that answer your question? How do I work? Okay. No. I'm so bad at languages. That is not my gift. Yeah, that's why I like working in England, because I don't have to know another language. But we're talking about moving our office. It might move to Spain or Portugal, so I'm going to have to learn a new language. So if you want to pray about that, pray that God gives me that gift of tongues to learn languages, because I don't have it. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm. food? The food question. So I have learned, I've been to Kenya and I've been to the Philippines or the Asia Pacific region and I've been to the Eurasia region. And by the time I got to Eurasia, I have learned that it's okay to say no to food because sometimes it will bite you in the butt. And let me tell you about the worst thing that I did not eat because I was wise enough to say no to it. And we're getting close to lunch, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to gross you out. So in the Asian areas, they have this thing called balut. Has anyone ever heard of balut? Yep. So balut is an egg, and it's a partially fertilized duck. It's a baby duck that's still in its egg. And you can get 16-day-old balut, and you can get 21-day-old balut. And the difference is one is crunchy and one is soft. And so you take this egg and they boil it so it's dead. And when you get it, you find where the little duck is sitting in the egg, and you hold that at the bottom. Then you tap open the top, and you drink this soup that's inside, which is all the embryonic fluids and great yummy stuff. So you drink that, and then you peel off the rest of the shell, and you roll it in salt, and you dip it in vinegar, and you eat it like a chicken nugget. And it's all the beak and the feathers and the little feet and all of it. So that's balut. I did not eat it, but I watched my American boss eat it, and it was hilarious. Anything else? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was there. The Manchester bombing. Has anyone not heard about the Manchester bombing? So it was a radical who came in and bombed this concert in Manchester, England. And I know where the arena is that they were at. It's the site of the bombing was nowhere near me. I was in a suburb outside of that area. However, the bomber attended a mosque, and his family runs and is in charge of this mosque that's about a 5-minute walk from my place of residence in Manchester. So that was a little bit of a wake up moment. And after that had happened, we didn't do a lot directly involved with that bombing, but we did a lot of Muslim outreach and a lot of just learning about cultures. We weren't like, oh, let's convert people, because that's not what we do. That's not how we handle that. I mean, you know what I mean. But I got to go to a mosque during Ramadan and just enjoy a meal with these people. And it was one of the coolest things that I've ever had to do. So it was just a really good chance to learn about people after that had happened. And it was definitely startling, but the people in England really handled it pretty well, I think. There wasn't this outpour of outrage. It was more an outpour of, let me understand what happened. Let me understand this culture so that I can not be afraid of them. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else? I did the same thing. I was doing video production, and I was in Manila, Philippines, which is where the media office is at the Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary campus, APNTS. I was there for about 6 months. I've learned that I don't handle Manila very well, so we moved on pretty quick from that location. Anything else? Yes, sir. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. You might have to remind me of the second part. I'm going to talk about the first part. So the first question is, who am I interacting with when I'm in these other cultures? In the place where I live, which is Manchester, I get out and I get a part of the local culture. So most of the people that I hang out with, most of the people that I'm friends with, are from the UK, from all parts of the UK. Half of them are Christians, but then I also have this, I call it my unofficial ministry in Manchester. And it really is just a nerdy gaming group, and everyone in that group, I don't think a single one of them is a Christian. So it gives me this really great opportunity to just hang out in a casual atmosphere and have good conversations with people while we're playing very nerdy, like dragons and knights and stuff kind of games, which is pretty fun. So that's, if that answers your first question. Second question is the people that I interact with, how do they view Americans? American Christians. So it varies from place to place. And I've noticed that Europeans tend to kind of have this, how do I want to word it? I don't think they really fully click in with what we really do in America. I don't think they really care. Most people don't really care. Like, if you're a Christian, awesome. And we're all kind of part of it. The Nazarene family, because it's so international, like, we are a global church. I can walk into any Nazarene church anywhere in the world and feel welcome and feel at home, regardless of my ethnicity or where I come from. Sometimes they have some weird notions about what American culture is like. A lot of the times they seem to assume that we eat really big pieces of food. They're like, are your burgers like this big? I'm like, no. No, they're not. Like, if you want to do a food challenge, you could find a burger that big. I was like, that's not. So they have those kind of silly notions in their head, but it's not negative at all. I've been told that American accents are very easy to understand. I think, though, they're not talking about Southern accents. Those are not easy to understand. Yeah. But like our kind of accent, I've been told by several Russian people that, oh, you're just so easy to understand. But there really is not much of a difference between Christians, groups of Christians. I haven't noticed much of that at all, which is great. You know, we can just relax and be Christians together in the Nazarene church. Now, I don't talk to a lot of people that are not Nazarene, or we don't have those kinds of conversations when I do talk to them. So I'm not sure about other, like I know a few Pentecostals. I don't think I've ever met a Baptist outside of America. Lots of Methodists, though, Lutherans, and the Nazarenes. I'm not sure if that really answered your question. I guess the short answer is there's not much of a difference when they're addressing each other, which is great. You know, we kind of have this attitude of everyone hates America. Don't. Most people just don't care. They've got their own problems to worry about. It's okay. We don't have to be embarrassed. Anything else? Yeah. How long my camera is. So my camera, when I got my lens on it, is about this long. Not that big. What's the second one? My camera? Okay, so if I got a tripod, it gets up to about this tall. It comes to about there. Does that make sense? How do I make the camera work? I take lots of classes and I watch lots of YouTube videos. It's a little hard. I'd have to show you. I didn't bring my camera today. I should have. Anything else? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. So my mother is very, I know she worries. She doesn't tell me when she's worried. She just prays a lot. So she knows what I'm doing. She knows that it's good. And so she doesn't panic. She's really supportive. Now, my father is very supportive, but he gets really freaked out really easily. I tend not to tell him if I'm going to a really scary place until after I've come back. I'll just tell him that I'm going somewhere, and I just won't tell him where. If he really wants to find that information, he can find it pretty easily. He can just talk to my mom about it. I don't think he really wants to know. He just prays. He just sits there and worries and prays about it. But never have they told me, no, don't go. They've always been, we understand, we know you need to go and do this, so go and do it. But it gets a little scary sometimes. My siblings don't care. My sister the other day, she's like, oh yeah, someone came up and asked me about you. And she's like, I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're doing. I'm like, thanks. But that tells me that they're not worried. when you go out as a missionary, it's easy to get scared about what was going to happen to your family when you're back at home or what they're going to think about you. But over and over again, God just reassures me, I've got them. It's going to be okay. They're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's all right. So just kind of rest in that peace. A lot of the times being a missionary is just resting in the knowledge that God's got you. Because everything else, listen, I had an abscess tooth in Bangladesh. And it was the scariest thing that I've ever done. And over and over and over again, I had to go, okay, God, okay, I trust you. It's going to be okay. That's what that's really what being a missionary boils down to a lot of the time. Anything else? Yeah. I do. I do go to places that are scary, places where they don't have a lot of infrastructure for roads. So 2 lanes become like 7 lanes, and everyone's kind of weaving in and out of each other. I went to Africa first, and I was serving in Nairobi, Kenya, which is a really cool place to be. It's not third world. I think you might call it like a second world country. But it was the weirdest fear that I had. I didn't expect to be afraid of it, but I had to cross the street to get to work. And I would come up to the edge of this street, and it was supposed to be 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes going the other way, but they ended up being like 7 lanes of traffic. And if it was rush hour, there was no break. There was no crosswalk. Like, it was just a wall of traffic constantly. And the problem was that the bus drivers, they would smoke this thing. It's not weed, but it was something to that effect. They would get high on a drug so that they would be brave when they drove in traffic. So these people are high driving all of these public transportation things, and there are no lanes, and there's no speed limits, and there's no lights. And I remember coming up, I was like 23 years old. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I come up to the edge of this road, and I look at this wall of traffic. I have to get to the other side. I'm by myself. And I'm like, okay. So I look down at my feet. I go, Lord, I need to cross the road. And look up, and there's no cars. And I run across the road. And then the cars came back. It was the coolest moment I've ever had. And I've never expected to be afraid of traffic before. But it was that moment. There's this thing I like to call the blessing of need. When you need God immediately, it kind of pulls you closer to Him in this relationship that you would not have otherwise. We don't need God here as much as you would need it in a place like Bangladesh. And a lot of times I find the faith of the people in Bangladesh is stronger because they need Him. So next time you're in need, don't freak out. Use that need to push you into Him so that you cling to Him. And that relationship becomes so much stronger as He carries you through that thing, whatever that thing may be. If it's just crossing the street, I'll tell you what, my faith was strengthened that day. Anything else? Yeah. How old am I? Good question. How old do you think I am? 7? I am 28 years old. I've been told I look like I'm 20 sometimes. 28. And I've been doing this since 2012, but it hasn't been full time. I've been doing short-term trips until I figured out where I wanted to be, where God needed me to stay, and that has been England. So I did Africa for 4 months, and then I thought for a while that I was done being a missionary. I was like, oh yeah, I fulfilled my calling for 4 months. And God's like, nope, try again. So then I went to the Philippines for 6 months, and then I went to England right after that. And I'd been there for 13 months, and I'm heading back as soon as I get funding, all of my funding in place. So this is kind of seeing the baby missionary here. I'm not brand new. I've been out in the field, but this is still a new thing for me, and it's really exciting. Yes, sir. Do I make it sound easy? Ooh, that's a good one. How do I keep from getting discouraged? Because I get discouraged a lot. What scares me the most right now, I'll be very honest with you, is funding. I'm like, oh, geez, how am I supposed to raise all this money to get where I need to go, and that scares me. And then I always bring it back to, okay, if God didn't want me to be here, he's not going to provide for me to be in this place. If he wants me to go, then he's going to provide for that. It's so I try to settle into I don't know what to call it. I guess I try to settle into, if this is God's will, he's going to lead me to do it. If I'm in a situation, I was in Bangladesh when I had that abscess tooth, and I was freaked out. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what to do. So my response first was to pray my little tail off. And then I contacted a couple of my friends, and I was like, I need you guys to pray about this. And then I took a moment to just breathe and listen to some worship music, and then I acted. So I had to get my mind back into the right space. I took that need and I made it press me into God. And I stayed there, and then I went forward. If that answers your question. So it's not easy, but I know God built me for this. You know, you don't see a lot of missionaries because we're very rare and stubborn and weird kind of people. And that's on purpose, you know. For a while, I always thought, man, I'm just a weird human being. And the guy goes, no, I just built you to do this. Anything else? Yeah. What kind of space? What do you mean? Gotcha. Okay, so that's space. That's a space that's in your mind. If you're freaking out, if you're having a panic attack, you're like, oh no, I don't know what to do. I have to get my head into a place where I can be calm again. Does that make sense? So what I do is I talk to God about it. I say, hey, God, I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do. And I talk to him for a long time. And then I'll listen to some good music. Do you know who Toby Mac is? It's a good singer. So I listen to a lot of good worship music, like what we heard up here today. And I just let myself calm down. And I get into, that's what I call the space, that mental headspace. I know that's kind of a weird way to describe it. Parents, grandparents, you might need to back that one up. Yeah. God space. That's a good way of saying it. Anything else? Oh, yes. I think it's lots of places. I'm not sure how to define that. So I was in England for a year, and I got to go to Ukraine, Moldova, Portugal, Germany, and Bangladesh. So I went to 5 places, which in my mind is a lot. They were big trips, so I probably could not have done more than that and still produced the amount of videos that I did. So 5 places that I went to this time around. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. So when I'm on the field, when I'm in England, and I have to go to a place to get a story, the communications team will send me. So I don't have to worry about those funds. We have budget for the communications team to send people out to go do that, which is a big relief for me. So I can just go and do my job. I don't have to worry about paying for that part. I have to pay to get from here in the States to the field and then from the field back again. And so far, I have just been getting support from churches. So I'll come and speak at churches like here. I have to change it though, because my format is changing. So I'm moving from strictly volunteer to a new category called associate missionary, which means I'll be out in the field longer. So I have to get people who want to be an ongoing monthly supporter. And that's kind of been my focus this time around. So it's changing, it's shifting, but that's hopefully where all of my funding will be. People who are just like, we believe in this, we're gonna kind of sponsor you and come alongside you for a few years. Anything else? Yeah, you guys have good questions back there. Yeah, I get on airplanes mostly. I fly, which is a lot of fun. I like to fly. And then when I get to a place like I got to Portugal, And I didn't know where to go once I got there, but I had another missionary come on, and she drove me where I needed to go. So she took me in a car. So I'll go on airplanes, or I'll go with other missionaries who have cars and know where they're going, because I don't know where I'm going. Anything else? Yeah, I see you back there. Yeah, good question. When I went from the US to Asia Pacific, when I went from the US to the Philippines, in total, I think it was 3 flights that I had to take. It was about 30 hours in airports and in airplanes. So I was so dead by the end of it. I think it was only 1 day though. Like I crossed the date line. So I left on a Saturday and I arrived on a Saturday. And it was 30 hours in between there. It was nuts. 30. That was the longest one. Most of them are not that long. It takes 7 hours to get to England on a plane. Anything else? Okay, I've got one more tidbit to share with you. It has nothing to do with missions, and I was going to say it earlier, and I forgot. So I've never been to this church before in Burton, but I've been to Burton before. Has anyone ever heard of the Polka Kings? It was a TV show. How about the Chardon Polka Band? Yeah? So, like 4 or 5 years ago, they were producing a show called the Polka Kings with Jacob Cowie and all of them, right? Produced by like the Hollywood producers, and I used to be a production assistant for that. So I was all over Burton because we filmed at Jake's house, which is up in town. We filmed there all the time. So I know this town and I love it. And Chardon, we were all over that place. So have you ever heard of the Polka Kings? I was a part of that. Oh, I love it. Nice. He's a good kid. Jacob Cowie. He's crazy, but he's a good kid. Okay. Anything else? All hearts cleared? Okay.
All right, I'm going to ask is the worship team going to come? All right, they got a thing. But while they're coming up to prepare this thing that they have, we're going to do a thing. And here's what we're going to do. Number one, I want to remind you of the fact that Rebecca does not do this alone. She does this, first of all, with God's support and help, but then God's people support and help her. So today, we are going to, along with our offering time or our tithes, so if you have tithes and you want to put that in the plate or the offering basket, that's fine. But if you would like to give over and above that and give to Rebecca, you can throw that in there. So here's what we're going to do. There should be envelopes here inside, and if there's not and you need an envelope, we can get you one. I'll go get some more, and you just need to write on the outside of that Rebecca, and we'll make sure that that money gets to her. If for some reason you feel God leading you to be a monthly supporter, or even as a church, as a board, we will be talking about this and praying about this, how God wants to lead us as a church. But if for some reason you want to do that, then you need to probably talk to her, and she'll get you the information for that, as well as if you want to talk to her afterwards and get information on where you can find her sites, links, and all that kind of good stuff, all right? And then the last thing is this. This morning here, not just our young people, but our young people, one of the reasons why I wanted Rebecca to come is because she is younger. A lot of times you bring missionaries in, and they've been in the mission field for like 112 years, and they've been doing this thing. But as young people, you need to realize that when God is preparing you, and he's sending you to college, whatever he's sending you to do, he is first preparing you to be an ambassador for him. And so wherever he leads you, whatever career you choose or decide that God is putting you into, he's putting you there so that he can walk on the stage of your life and show himself to all the people that you are going to be around with that career. And so don't even think for a second that God is not calling you to something bigger than just a job or a career. And it may be overseas, but it may be right here, and he's going to use that to use you to advance his kingdom. This is what it says in Acts 4. And I want also to say this. I want to read this morning. Peter and John are arrested. And the reason I want to read this is because this morning you might be here too, and you might be saying, you know what? Like that lady in that film, I've got struggles going on in my life, and I don't know exactly where to turn. And I'm going to tell you where to turn. And you can do that this morning here. You can do that at your home tonight. You can do that wherever. But I'm going to tell you, this is what happened. Peter was filled with the Holy Spirit, and he said to them, rulers and elders of the people, if we are on trial today for benefit done to a sick man as to how this man has been made well, well, then let it be known to all of you and to all the people of Israel that by the name of Jesus Christ, the Nazarene, whom you crucified, whom God raised from the dead, by this name, this man stands here before you in good health. He is the stone which was rejected by you, the builders, but which became the chief cornerstone. And there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven that has been given among men by which we must be saved. And so if you are here today and you need saving, whether it's from your sin because you have never asked Jesus into your heart, or it's because you're in a struggle and a battle right now and you need his help, all you need to do is call on him, because that's what he does. He saves. He saves those who are in need. So I'm going to ask if you would bow your heads, and I'm going to ask that as we go into this worship, that you begin to pray and think about how you might support Rebecca. And then when we're done with worship, I'm going to have Rebecca come up, and I would just ask that if everybody, I mean, if you have to go, that's fine, but if everybody come up, and we're just going to pray for Rebecca, if that's okay. All right, so I'll turn it over to you guys for right now.
Jesus, I my cross have taken, all to leave and follow thee, destined to despise, forsaken, thou from hence my all shall be. Perish every condemnation, all I sought or hoped to know. Yet how rich is my condition, but in heaven are still my own. Let the world despise and beat me. They have left my Savior too. Human hearts and looks deceive me. Thou art not like man untrue. Hello, thou shalt smile upon me. Lord of wisdom, love, and might. Those they hated, friends they shun me. Show thy face, and all is bright. Those in earthly fame and treasure, come disaster, scorn, and pain. In thy service paid is pleasure, with thy favor loss in gain. I am called the Abba Father, I have stayed my heart on thee. Storms may howl and clouds may gather, all must work for good to me. Hasty on from grace to glory, armed by faith and winged by prayer, as eternal days before thee, God's own hand shall guide thee there. Soon shall close thy earthly mission, soon shall pass thy pilgrim days. Hope shall change to glad fruition, faith to sight and praise. To suppose thy earthly mission, glimpse of past thy pilgrim days, once a change to glad fruition, make to sight and plan to pray. heart unleashed. Storms may howl and clouds may gather, all must work for good to me. Taste me up from grace to glory. Armed with faith and winged by prayer. And eternal days before thee. God's own hand shall guide thee there. Such a close earthly mission, where shall pass thy pilgrim days. Hope shall change to glad fruition, faith to sight, and prayer to praise. Soon shall close thy earthly mission, swift shall pass thy pilgrim days. Hope shall change to glad fruition, faith to sight, and prayer to praise.
Like a PSA. Let me tell you how to do it. Remember those things that were commercials? They were like little cartoon kids and gave out politics. Let me tell you about the world. And he walked out in front of the I know it was a thing. I was just calling kids.